The Commodore 64 game system, more commonly referred to as the Commodore 64 GS, is a cartridge-based game console based on their popular Commodore 64 home computer of the time. It was released exclusively in Europe in 1990 at a price of £99, which is about $250 today, converted and adjusted for inflation. The C64GS was not Commodore's first gaming system based on the C64 hardware. However, unlike the 1982 Max machine, a game-oriented computer based on a very cut-down version of the same hardware family, the C64 gaming system is internally very similar to the Commodore 64 computer and is technically compatible with most of its software. The 64GS came bundled with a cartridge that had 4 games on it. These included Fiendish Freddy's Big Top of Fun, International Soccer, Limbo's Quest, and Clax. Commodore promised a game library of over 100 games, but in the end only 28 were made, and only 9 of them were new games made for the console. Most of them were just ports of much older games from the 1980s. But the problems with the 64GS don't stop there. Despite having lots of games and software already available on cartridges from the Commodore 64 computer, the lack of a keyboard for the 64GS meant that most of them couldn't be used with the console. This meant that most of the Commodore 64 games and software, while technically compatible with the 64GS, were completely unplayable on the console. One example is the standard Commodore 64 version of Terminator 2 Judgment Day that was actually designed for the console. The game required the user to press a key on a keyboard at the start menu to access the game. But since the 64GS didn't have a keyboard or a port to even plug one in, the game was literally unplayable. You could, however, play the game on a standard Commodore 64 computer using a joystick like the one the 64GS had. So overall, the 64GS was a complete failure. It was poorly designed, had old, dated games, and had no accessories. All of that and the fact that it was trying to compete with Nintendo, Sega, and PlayStation meant the end for the 64GS. In total, there were 80,000 consoles produced, but Commodore could only sell 20,000 of them. The 64GS was a big L for Commodore. This video was a segment from my Iceberg documentary on every single video game console ever made, so if you're into that sort of thing, you should definitely go check it out. You can follow me on all social media at IcebergDocs. Like, subscribe, click the links in the description. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.